Viewers, welcome and thank you for joining me in the second episode of the Public Finance Trail Program. In our last episode, we briefly discussed the budget cycle, and today we are going into the details and we are going to look at the sector hearings. My name is Regina Kinyolando, and with me are our resident panelists. On my right is Timothy Kiprono, a program officer at the Kerio Center organization, and on my left is Mr. Emmanuel Kongin, Assistant Program Officer at Kerio Center Organization. Welcome to the program. Mr. Kiprono, what do you mean by sector hearings and what role do they play in the budgeting process?
All right, thank you. Sector hearings are basically consultations, starting from December to around January, when sectors start requesting for resources from county treasury. So sometimes these are called MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework, which means we're not just budgeting for 1 year, but we're budgeting for around 3 years. But we always revise the future years. Like now, if we are budgeting for next year, the current discussions around the sector hearings are for next year. So we will discuss the 2016-17 when we go there. We revise, the estimates for that year to suit changes, things that we've not forecasted, expected to happen at that period. Yeah, the role of these discussions, which we said the sector hearings, is to meet the requirement that the public is consulted prior to setting the ceilings or distribution of resources across departments. So remember we talked about CBROP in the previous session. So this is a county budget and review and outlook paper which sets provisional ceilings. So these ceilings are supposed to be discussed and revised at these sector hearings, so that when the county fiscal strategy paper comes out, it has the final and agreed ceilings, like how much for health, how much for agriculture, and the rest. Yes.
Okay, he has said that sector hearings are basically consultations that go on as we come up with different fiscal papers. Is there a difference between a sector and a department?
The term sector refers to bringing together ministries and departments with a view of coming up with a way of sharing resources. The role that is played by the sector varies between national and county level, because at national level the ministries and departments are so many and they are grouped to about 10. But for counties, you already have very few departments and ministries, and sometimes it varies between counties. Some counties may decide to group together some few ministries to come up with, or there are some few departments to come up with a sector, but for some counties all the departments will be looked at as different sectors.
Mr. Kiprono, what normally happens at these sector hearings?
All right, thank you. Actually, there are about two things that happen during this hearing, and one of them is discussion around the provision of ceilings set in the CPRO that I said. So public is given a chance to discuss, do we agree with this, with the ceilings, for example? Do we agree with the amount allocated or the maximum amount that agriculture will spend, health will spend, and the rest? Or do we need some revisions around that? So people look at the plans of each department, what is this that they want to do with the provision of ceiling, and do they need more money, or do they even justify that ceiling anyway? Because sometimes, the treasury sets the ceiling for each department, the CPROP, but you realize sometimes those departments, if you look at the previous expenditure, for example, like previous 2 years, you realize those departments cannot absorb that money. Yeah. So it's like public will also have a chance to say, you didn't spend your money for the previous 2 years. Why do you need this amount of money this year? Some departments public will also have a chance to say, look, department X is spending its money, and in fact it requires more money. So we reduce department Z and increase money for department X. So the second thing that's ongoing around there is the sectoring is supposed to be designed in a way that public will know how much is committed already. So if you have the whole budget for the county, part of it is going to salaries already. Part of it is going to operations. Part of it is going to ongoing projects, which were started last year, which are implemented in phases. So, and then this year we have new money. For example, we implemented projects last year and we finished.
Yeah.
So the money that was allocated to those projects last year are free this year for new projects. So actually the discussion should be around this new money. What is happening with this new money? So if Department X has allocated to salaries, has allocated to operations, then the remaining money is like we bring in new projects this year. So do we agree with those new projects? So it's like, do we agree with how the new money is spent, or do we want that money to be spent on something else? So those are the two key things that happen in this sector hearings. Yes.
And having talked of what is done during sector hearings, do you think Uasin Gishu followed this process?
Uasin Gishu is just finished their sector hearings, or are just about to finish it. And unfortunately, the process is a bit different from what we normally expect with sector hearings. First, this is because sector hearings are about bidding. You're supposed to get the provisional ceilings from CBROP that tell you like these and these and these departments are getting, these are the projected ceilings for each particular department. But for the case of Uasin Gishu, the sector hearings, we were actually able to attend with my colleagues these sector hearings, and we found that there were no discussions around the ceilings. They were actually giving you projects that were done, not even the programs that were done in the previous financial year, but they were giving you the projects that were being done in the previous year. So in our opinion, we felt that there could have been a lot that could have been done regarding the ceilings, because ideally we are supposed to be discussing like how do we increase this funding for specific sectors, and which sectors are supposed to have reductions, but that did not happen in the case of Uasin Gishu.
And what do you think can happen at this stage now?
At this stage, I think Uasin Gishu is going to go forward with the next stage, which is drafting the CFSP.
But is it constitutional?
I mean, you asked whether Uasin Gishu followed this process, and so Kongin was explaining how the discussions were going. And Agali was basically just list of projects anyway. We didn't discuss resources, as opposed to, we are supposed to discuss how much is the sector or the department getting. The sector in the sense that if departments are brought together, like Kongin said, some counties bring together departments to share resources in a sector. So the sector is allocated resources, so you are going to share this. So if you have 3 departments within the sector, so you bid for the resources allocated to the sector. So that did not happen. We didn't see like how much is allocated for agriculture, how much is allocated for trade, for example, which were brought together under the same sector. So we didn't know like what is the resource envelope for the sector.
Okay. So
the second thing is, well, you're asking whether it is constitutional. Again, the sector hearings are not requirement of, are not listed anywhere in the BFM or Public Finance Management Act. But it is a requirement that this requirement in the Public Finance Management Act that consult public prior to setting the ceiling.
Sure.
So as much as the sector hearings are not a requirement per se, but the consultation, consult people, because prior to setting the ceilings in the CFSP, then I think they violated some kind of provisions in the BFM. But what should happen now is, I think the Assembly should consult public on the CFSP, because what happens is the product or the outcome of the sector hearings is supposed to feed the formulation or the setting of the ceilings in the CFSP, which is actually coming up next. So if people were not consulted, people didn't know so how much is going to health, how much is going to agriculture, and how much do we want for health, and how much do we want for agriculture, something like that. Because that did not happen, and it was supposed to happen, so that it informs the setting of the ceilings in the CFSP. So if that did not happen, and then the CFSP will come with ceilings, which the public did not have a chance to discuss, then I think the Assembly will have a chance to say, okay, look, so do you agree with this ceiling? Okay. Normally, the Assembly is not required to go to public and ask those questions anyway, because the public and the executive agreed during the sector hearings, like this is how it's going to happen. The other opportunity for public to actually have a chance is for the county treasury to say, look, we did the sector hearings, wrongly. We didn't do the way it was expected. And now, let's subject the ceilings that we're going to set in the CFSP to the public. So, I mean, from where we sit, the sector hearings did not happen as it's supposed to happen. And so, the ceilings that are going to be set in the CFSP are not going to be like, I mean, coming from public anyway. Kind of someone just decided like what goes to agriculture, what goes to health, because we were given list of projects, assuming I'm part of the people who participate in this sector. Yes.
And severally you've mentioned about the CFSP. For the sake of that audience who didn't have an opportunity to watch our last episode, kindly just clarify on that.
Yeah, the CFSP is actually the second last document in the budget process, which is it's actually called the County Fiscal Strategy Paper. It gives us an opportunity to see several things. One, how much is going to each department as a final figure, or how much each department is going to spend. And then secondly, how much revenue are we going to generate in the next financial year based on performance of the last year and first half of the year, which is December to July. Okay, so it's like first half of the year. So you look at how did we perform in terms of revenue collection, and gives us a picture of what is the likelihood that we generate revenue in the next financial year. So if our target was 1 billion shillings, for example, and in the first half we've reached half of that 1 billion shillings, then it means next year we can project our revenue plus some percentage, because I mean we are meeting our targets and something like that. So the CFSP gives us two things. One is a picture of each department, how much each department spent, and two, the revenue estimation for the next financial year.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification. And Mr. Kiprono, from what you've just explained, are there criteria to be followed when setting ceilings by sectors?
Yes, you know, in the last show we talked of the August 30 circular.
Sure.
So this circular is supposed to give guidelines on the budget process, which includes what each department should consider when setting their priorities. Yeah. So, and well, we didn't get the treasury circulars for counties. We haven't seen any. But I mean, so if we use, for example, the national one for 2013-14, there are a lot of things that the treasury says. I mean, your programs, your whatever, your projects should meet certain criteria. One, if you look at the 2013 one, they had like around 5 items, which is like, I mean, departments which should follow. One of them was like your programs, or the programs you plan to fund with your ceiling should align with Vision 2030, the objectives of Vision 2030. And then the second thing was they also want to see the degree to which programs contribute to reduction of poverty. They also wanted to see the outputs and the outcomes of each program. They also want to see the linkage of your programs to other programs within the same department and other departments or ministries at national level, for example. So, for example, if we talk about, for counties, for example, of course, they can't link their programs direct to Vision 2030 because they have the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan. So what they're supposed to do is their program should link to the CIDP objectives, which of course then links the county to the Vision 2030. So for example, we talk about addressing poverty, the program addressing poverty. Well, each program could address poverty, but to what extent is your program addressing poverty? So it's like your ranking. Each program is rated. Like, I mean, what's the extent is your program addressing to whatever we said? For example, in 2013, the issue was poverty. So to what extent is program A, program B, and whatever addressing to that? And then they are ranked based on their contribution. Yeah. So outputs are the things that happen. Outputs and outcomes are the things that happen when a program is implemented. So, for example, when you say we let's use our previous example of public concern or healthcare and medical supply. So they say that's a concern. So they look at the program that are addressing that and say, okay, so what are the things that when you implement that program will come out? Will the public start getting medical trucks in facilities? Will they stop going to private chemists to badges? Will the number of prescriptions given from public facilities reduce? Those are the things those are the outputs. Those are the changes that happen to the programs, and those are some of the things they look at.
Okay. Yeah. The Public Finance Trail takes a short break, but don't go too far.